Two children slip into danger no one dares to face, until one woman risks everything to act. But what she doesn't know about their family will change the meaning of her courage forever. Thank you so much for watching and for all your comments. Let me know at the end if you liked the story, and where you're watching from and why you're following this. The sun blazed down on the dusty streets of Willow Creek, Texas, 1876. Sarah Blackwood, a widow of 30 with auburn hair and determined eyes, wiped sweat from her brow as she finished stocking shelves in her small general store. Unlike most women in town, she ran her business alone, earning both respect and suspicion from locals. "Miss Blackwood, we need more sugar," called Martha, her assistant, a young girl of 16 with freckles scattered across her nose. "I'll check the storeroom," Sarah replied, adjusting her simple dress as she stepped into the back room. The store had been her husband's before he died in the war, leaving her to fend for herself in a town that still viewed independent women with caution. Outside, the usual afternoon quiet was interrupted by excited voices. Sarah emerged to find several townsfolk hurrying past her store windows. "What's happening?" she asked Tom Wilson, the blacksmith who paused at her door. "Stagecoach arrived, bringing some new folk to town," he answered, curiosity evident in his weathered face. "Some say there's a half-breed family. Strange business, especially with the tensions lately." Sarah frowned. The conflicts between settlers and Native Americans had intensified in recent months, with stories of raids and counter-raids spreading fear throughout the territory. "People deserve a chance, Tom, regardless of their heritage," she said firmly. Tom shrugged. "Not everyone shares your generous views, Sarah. Best be careful who you befriend these days." After closing the store, Sarah's curiosity led her to the edge of town. There, near the old creek path, she spotted them. A man with sharp features and dark copper skin standing beside a plain wagon. Though dressed like any settler in practical trousers and a worn shirt, his Comanche heritage was unmistakable. Beside him stood a woman with pale skin and two small children, twins by the look of them, no more than 7 years old. The family was being denied accommodation at the town's only boarding house. Sarah could see Mrs. Peterson, the owner, shaking her head vigorously while pointing away from town. "We have no room for your kind here," Mrs. Peterson's voice carried on the wind. "There's a camp 3 miles east where people like you can stay." The man remained stoic, but his wife's shoulders slumped. The children clung to their mother's skirts, eyes wide with confusion and fatigue. Sarah felt a tightness in her chest. She had experienced prejudice as a woman alone, but nothing like this outright rejection. Before she could reconsider, she was walking toward them. "Excuse me," she called. The family turned to her, wariness in their expressions. "I'm Sarah Blackwood. I own the general store in town. I have a small room above my shop that isn't being used. You're welcome to it while you find your bearings." The man studied her with intense dark eyes. "Why would you help us when others won't?" "Because I know what it's like to be judged unfairly," she answered honestly. "I'm a widow running a business alone. Some folks here think that's nearly as improper as—" She hesitated. "As being Comanche?" He finished, a hint of bitterness in his voice. "I'm Thomas Swift River," he finally said. "This is my wife, Hannah, and our children, Lily and James." Hannah stepped forward, relief washing over her tired face. "Thank you, Miss Blackwood. We won't forget your kindness." As they gathered their belongings, Sarah noticed several townspeople watching from a distance, disapproval evident in their stares. Sheriff Davis approached, his hand resting casually on his holstered gun. "You sure about this, Sarah? Taking in Indians isn't going to make you popular." "He's half Comanche, his wife is white, and those children are exhausted," Sarah replied firmly. "And since when do I make decisions based on popularity, Sheriff?" Davis sighed. "Your funeral, ma'am. Just don't come crying when your customers start shopping elsewhere." That night, after settling the family in the modest room above her store, Sarah sat alone in her small kitchen. The room felt different, knowing there were people above, the floorboards occasionally creaking with movement. It had been years since she'd shared her space with anyone. A soft knock on her door startled her. It was Hannah, holding a small bundle. "I noticed your pantry was low on herbs when we passed through," she said softly. "These are dried sage and wild rosemary, good for cooking and healing." Sarah accepted the gift, touched by the gesture. "Thank you. Please, Sit with me a moment." As they shared tea, Hannah explained their journey. Thomas had grown up between two worlds. His mother, a captured settler who later married his Comanche father by choice. He'd learned to hunt and track, but also to read and write English. They were traveling to find work on a ranch owned by a former army officer who had promised not to discriminate. "It's been a difficult journey," Hannah admitted. "Most towns won't even let us stop for supplies." "Willow Creek isn't much different," Sarah warned. "You've already seen that." Hannah's eyes reflected the lamplight as she stared into her cup. "We're used to it. But the children," her voice faltered. "They're starting to understand what hatred looks like." Sarah reached across the table and squeezed Hannah's hand. "Stay as long as you need. Perhaps some minds here can be changed." As Hannah returned upstairs, Sarah felt a strange sense of purpose stirring within her. In helping this family, she was somehow helping herself, pushing back against the narrow boundaries that had confined her own life since James died. Little did she know that this simple act of kindness would soon test her courage in ways she could never have imagined. The following morning brought clear skies and whispers throughout Willow Creek. Sarah opened her store as usual, though customers were scarce. Those who did enter cast suspicious glances toward the ceiling, as if expecting the floorboards to give way under the weight of the mixed-race family. "You'll regret this charity, Miss Blackwood," muttered Mrs. Holloway, the banker's wife, as she reluctantly purchased fabric. "Indians can't be trusted, even half-breeds. Everyone knows that." Sarah measured the calico carefully before cutting. "Thomas Swift River and his family haven't given me any reason for concern. Perhaps you should judge them by their actions rather than their heritage." Mrs. Holloway sniffed. "My husband says they bring trouble. The Comanche raided the Miller farm just last month. 2 men dead." "And was Mr. Swift River among those raiders?" Sarah asked pointedly. The woman collected her purchase without answering and left the store in a huff. Martha, who had been listening from behind the counter, approached Sarah with concern. "Are you sure this is wise, Miss Sarah? I don't mind them being here, truly. But the town—" Sarah placed a reassuring hand on the girl's shoulder. "Sometimes doing what's right isn't the same as doing what's easy, Martha." By midday, Thomas appeared in the store, his tall frame commanding attention despite his quiet demeanor. "I've come to ask where I might find work. We can't accept your charity without offering something in return." Sarah considered him thoughtfully. "The Baldwin Ranch might need hands, but they're 5 miles north. In town, options are limited. Especially—" She didn't finish the sentence. Thomas nodded, understanding the unspoken reality. "I can hunt, track, and I'm good with horses. My father taught me, and I learned carpentry from my mother's brother." "The livery might need help," Sarah suggested. "Mr. Cooper is getting on in years. I can speak with him." "I would appreciate that, but I'll speak for myself," Thomas replied firmly. A man should look another in the eye when asking for work. Sarah respected his dignity. "Of course." Later that afternoon, Sarah took the twins, Lily and James, to the creek while their parents sought work. The children were initially shy, but soon warmed to her gentle manner. They collected smooth stones and watched minnows dart in the shallow water. "Miss Sarah," Lily asked, her dark eyes serious beneath a fringe of straight black hair, "why did those boys call us bad names in town?" Sarah's heart ached. Some people fear what they don't understand. They see differences instead of similarities. "Papa says we're lucky," James added, skipping a stone across the water. "We have 2 worlds inside us instead of 1. "Your father is very wise," Sarah smiled. Their peaceful outing was interrupted when 3 local boys appeared on the bank, led by 12-year-old Billy Thompson, the mayor's son. "Hey, Indian lovers," Billy shouted. "My pa says you're all going to bring trouble." Sarah stood protectively. "That's enough, Billy. You should be ashamed speaking to guests of our town this way." "They ain't guests," another boy sneered. "They're savages." "Leave us alone," Lily shouted back, surprising Sarah with her courage. Billy picked up a rock. "Make us half-breed." Before Sarah could intervene, a stone flew past, narrowly missing James. The twins instinctively moved behind Sarah as more rocks followed. One struck Sarah's arm, causing her to wince in pain. "Stop this immediately," she commanded, but the boys only laughed. Suddenly, a commanding voice rang out. "Enough!" Sheriff Davis appeared on horseback, his expression thunderous. The boys scattered immediately. "You all right, Miss Blackwood?" he asked, dismounting. We're fine, thank you, Sheriff, she replied, though her arm throbbed. Davis eyed the twins with a mixture of curiosity and caution. Mayor Thompson won't be pleased to hear his son was causing trouble, but he'll be even less pleased about— He gestured vaguely at the children. About innocent children being attacked? Sarah finished sharply. I should hope he would be outraged, regardless of who they are. Davis sighed heavily. Sarah, I understand your intentions are good, but this situation is complicated. There's talk of Comanche war parties moving closer to town. People are scared. And that justifies cruelty to children? No, but fear makes folks act foolishly. Be careful. Not everyone shares your open-mindedness. As they returned to town, Sarah noticed the stares intensifying. Outside the general store, Thomas and Hannah waited, their faces brightening at the sight of their children but quickly clouding with concern upon noticing Sarah's bruised arm. What happened? Hannah asked, examining the injury. Sarah downplayed the incident, but James spoke up. Boys threw rocks and called us names. Miss Sarah protected us. Thomas's jaw tightened, but he remained controlled. This is why we rarely stay in towns. The hatred follows us everywhere. I'm sorry, Sarah said, feeling the inadequacy of her words. Don't apologize for others, Thomas replied. You've shown more kindness than most. He hesitated before adding, I found work at the livery. Mr. Cooper agreed to a trial period. That's wonderful news. Sarah smiled, genuinely pleased. That evening, after closing the store, Sarah heard a commotion outside. A small crowd had gathered, led by Mayor Thompson and several prominent townsmen. Steeling herself, she stepped onto the porch to confront them. Can I help you, gentlemen? Mayor Thompson, a portly man with an impressive mustache, stepped forward. Miss Blackwood, we've come to discuss your guests. The town council has concerns. What concerns might those be, Mayor? Safety, Miss Blackwood. With Comanche raiding nearby settlements, harboring one in our midst sends the wrong message. Sarah crossed her arms. Mr. Swift River is as much white as he is Comanche, Mayor. His children are American citizens, and his wife is as white as I am. They're simply a family seeking work and peace. Nevertheless, the mayor continued, the council requests they move on for the good of the community. They have done nothing wrong, Sarah insisted. Mr. Auv, Swift River has already secured employment with Mr. Cooper, who desperately needs the help. From the shadows of the doorway, Thomas emerged. The crowd tensed visibly, some men reaching instinctively for weapons they weren't carrying. I mean no harm to anyone in this town, he said clearly, his dignity palpable. My family and I seek only honest work and a peaceful life. Mayor Thompson shifted uncomfortably. Your kind has a different understanding of peace than we do. My kind, Thomas questioned softly. Which part of me concerns you most, Mayor? The white blood or the Comanche? The question hung in the air, unanswerable without revealing the prejudice at its core. 1 week, the mayor finally declared. You have 1 week to make arrangements elsewhere. With that, he turned and led the group away, murmurs of discontent following in their wake. Sarah turned to Thomas, apology in her eyes. I'm so sorry. Don't be, he replied. 1 week is more than most towns give us, and for the first time someone stood beside us instead of against us. He extended his hand in the white man's custom. For that, Sarah Blackwood, you have my gratitude and respect. As they shook hands under the gathering twilight, Sarah felt a resolve hardening within her. 1 week might not be enough to change hearts and minds in Willow Creek, but she would try. These good people deserved better than the judgment they'd received, and she was determined to help them find it. 4 days after the mayor's ultimatum, Sarah noticed a change in town. While many still avoided her store, others came specifically to meet the family they'd heard so much about. Mr. Cooper publicly praised Thomas's work with horses, declaring him the finest hand with a troubled mare I've seen in 20 years. Hannah's knowledge of herbs had helped Mrs. Peterson's arthritic hands, softening the boarding house owner's initial prejudice. The twins, however, remained confined to the store and its small yard, their parents unwilling to risk another confrontation with the town's children. They need to play, Sarah told Hannah as they prepared dinner together. Children shouldn't be kept like caged birds. Hannah sighed, kneading dough with practiced hands. I know, but after what happened at the creek, Thomas says it's safer this way. Sarah watched the twins through the window as they invented games with simple wooden toys Thomas had carved. What if I took them on a picnic tomorrow? There's a lovely spot near the cliffs overlooking the valley. Few people go there. Hannah hesitated. Thomas would worry. Then he should join us, Sarah suggested. The store can manage without me for one afternoon. Martha is quite capable. That evening, Thomas listened to the proposal with reservation. The cliffs are dangerous, he said, his dark eyes serious, and isolated. If we encountered trouble, that's precisely why it's perfect, Sarah argued. No one will bother us there, and we'll stay well back from the edge. James looked up from his wooden horse. Please, Papa, we've been good. Very good, Lily added earnestly. And we're careful. You always say so. Thomas exchanged glances with Hannah, a silent communication passing between them. Very well, he finally agreed. But we returned before sunset. The following day dawned bright and clear. Sarah packed a generous basket with bread, cheese, dried fruit, and jars of lemonade. They set out after the morning rush, taking a little used path that wound behind the town and up into the rocky hills beyond. The climb was moderate but rewarding. From the plateau near the cliffs, they could see for miles across the plains, the town of Willow Creek looking like a collection of children's toys in the distance. It's beautiful, Hannah breathed, the tension visibly leaving her shoulders. Thomas stood slightly apart, scanning the horizon with practiced eyes. Sarah noticed how he positioned himself between his family and potential danger, a habit born from years of caution. The children, however, quickly forgot such worries. They spread the blanket, arranged the food, and soon were laughing as they had not done since arriving in Willow Creek. After eating, Thomas surprised them all by producing a small wooden flute from his pocket. The melody he played was haunting and sweet, drifting across the open space like a living thing. My father taught me, he explained between songs. Music speaks when words fail. It's lovely, Sarah said, genuinely moved. What does this song say? Thomas's expression softened. It speaks of the sky, the earth, and the space between where all creatures dwell together. No divisions, no territories. A world that doesn't exist, Hannah added quietly. But could, Sarah replied. As the afternoon progressed, the twins grew restless and asked to explore. Thomas allowed them to collect interesting rocks and plants, but with strict boundaries, stay within sight and well away from the cliff edge. Sarah walked with Hannah, learning about her life before meeting Thomas. She had been a schoolteacher in St. Louis, the daughter of a professor who had taught her to value knowledge over prejudice. I met Thomas when he guided our wagon train west, Hannah explained. My father hired him personally, impressed by his knowledge of both worlds. Others complained, but father insisted. It couldn't have been easy choosing to marry him, Sarah observed. Hannah's smile was bittersweet. The heart doesn't always choose the easy path, but I've never regretted it, despite everything. Suddenly, their conversation was interrupted by a frantic shout from Thomas. Lily, James, get back from there. Sarah turned to see the twins near the cliff edge, apparently examining something interesting in the rocky soil. Thomas was already running toward them, his face taut with fear. What happened next seemed to unfold in terrible slow motion. A section of the cliff edge, weakened by recent rains, crumbled beneath the children's weight. Lily screamed as she began to slide down the eroding slope toward the sheer drop beyond. James, instinctively reaching for his sister, lost his footing as well. No! Hannah's cry tore through the air as she ran forward. Thomas reached the crumbling edge first, throwing himself down to grab for James's outstretched hand, catching it just as the boy slipped over. But Lily had already slid further down, clinging to a jutting rock on the cliff face, her small body dangling precariously over the 100-foot drop. Help her! James screamed as his father pulled him to safety. Without hesitation, Sarah rushed to the edge, scanning for a way to reach the terrified child. She spotted a narrow ledge about 4 feet below the rim that seemed to extend toward Lily's position. Hold on, Lily, she called, kicking off her impractical shoes and gathering her skirts. I'm coming for you. Sarah, no, Thomas shouted. It's too dangerous. But Sarah was already lowering herself over the edge, feeling for the ledge with her stockinged feet. Finding purchase, she pressed her body against the cliff face, inching sideways toward the sobbing child. Look at me, Lily. she called steadily, though her heart hammered wildly. Just keep looking at me. The ledge narrowed as she moved, loose rocks skittering down the cliff face into the void below. Sarah forced herself not to look down, focusing entirely on the little girl whose fingers were visibly slipping from their tenuous hold. I'm scared, Lily whimpered. I know, sweetheart, but I'm almost there, Sarah assured her, though in truth several agonizing feet still separated them. Above, she could hear Thomas instructing Hannah to hold on to his ankles as he leaned over the edge, trying to extend his reach toward his daughter, but they all knew he couldn't reach far enough without endangering himself. Sarah's foot slipped, sending a shower of pebbles cascading downward. For a heart-stopping moment, she teetered on the brink of falling before regaining her balance. Her hands were bleeding now from gripping the rough stone, but she continued forward. Just as she came within arm's reach of Lily, the rock the child clung to shifted ominously. It's breaking, Lily cried in terror. Jump to me, Sarah called, bracing herself against the cliff face and extending both arms. Jump now, Lily. With a cry of fear, Lily released her hold on the failing rock and launched herself toward Sarah. For one terrible moment it seemed she would fall short, but Sarah lunged forward, catching the child's wrists and pulling her close in a desperate embrace. The sudden movement nearly sent them both tumbling into the abyss, but Sarah managed to press back against the cliff, holding Lily tightly against her chest. The child sobbed uncontrollably, clinging to her rescuer with all her strength. I've got you, Sarah whispered, her own voice shaking. I've got you now. Above them, Thomas had positioned himself to reach down as far as possible. Can you pass her to me? Carefully, Sarah raised Lily as high as she could. Reach for your father, sweetheart. With Thomas pulling from above and Sarah pushing from below, they managed to get Lily safely back onto solid ground. But Sarah now found herself stranded, the narrow ledge crumbling beneath her feet, her strength nearly spent. Sarah, Hannah called desperately, take my hand. Thomas secured Hannah as she lay on her stomach, stretching down towards Sarah. Reach up, please. Sarah gathered her remaining strength and stretched upward, her fingertips just brushing Hannah's. But it wasn't enough. The distance was too great. I need to climb higher, she called, searching for handholds in the crumbling rock face. Wait, Thomas instructed. He disappeared momentarily, returning with his rope belt. Quickly fashioning a loop, he lowered it toward her. Put your wrist through this. Sarah managed to slip the loop over her hand, gripping it tightly. Ready? With Hannah's help, Thomas pulled steadily, lifting Sarah's weight as she scrambled against the cliff for purchase. Inch by painful inch she ascended, until finally Thomas's strong hands gripped her arms, hauling her over the edge to safety. Sarah collapsed on the solid ground, trembling with exhaustion and delayed fear. Lily immediately threw herself into Sarah's arms, weeping openly. You saved me, she repeated over and over. You saved me when no one else would have. Thomas knelt beside them, his usually stoic expression replaced by naked emotion. There are no words, he said hoarsely, placing a hand on Sarah's shoulder. No words for what you've done today. Hannah embraced her husband and son, tears streaming down her face. You risked your life for our daughter. Sarah, still shaking, managed a weak smile. Any decent person would have done the same. No, Thomas said firmly. They would not. You know this as well as we do. As they gathered their scattered belongings, the reality of what had happened settled over them. Sarah had not only saved Lily's life, she had bound herself to this family in a way that transcended the barriers of race and prejudice that divided them from others. The sun was beginning to set as they made their way down the hill toward town, each lost in thought about how close they had come to tragedy and what their shared experience might mean for their uncertain future in Willow Creek. News of the near tragedy spread through Willow Creek like wildfire. By the following morning, embellished versions of the story circulated in the saloon, the church, and every home. Some versions painted Sarah as foolhardy, others as heroic, but all acknowledged the undeniable truth. She had risked her life to save a child that many in town had shunned. Sarah's store was unusually busy that day, filled with curious customers who came as much to gawk as to shop. Some offered awkward congratulations. Others studied her bandaged hands with silent amazement. Is it true you dangled by one arm over the cliff? Asked Mrs. Holloway, who had been so critical just days before. Hardly, Sarah replied, wincing as she wrapped a customer's purchase. I stood on a ledge. It was frightening enough without exaggeration. The sheriff arrived mid-morning, his expression unreadable as he approached the counter. Quite a story going around, Miss Blackwood. Much of it greatly exaggerated, I'm sure, Sarah responded, continuing with her work. Davis removed his hat, turning it in his hands. Mayor Thompson would like to speak with you and the Swift River family. At your convenience, he added, surprisingly deferential. Sarah straightened, immediately suspicious. What about? Their deadline isn't up for 2 more days. I believe that's part of what he wishes to discuss, the sheriff replied carefully. He'll be at his office until noon. After he left, Thomas emerged from the storeroom where he'd been helping with inventory. His face betrayed concern. What do you think he wants? Hannah asked, joining them with the twins in tow. Both children stuck close to their parents, still shaken by yesterday's events. Sarah considered for a moment. I'm not sure, but I think we should find out. Together. The mayor's office was situated in the small town hall, a modest building that also housed the jail and courthouse. As they approached, Sarah noticed several town council members entering ahead of them. This wasn't to be a private meeting then. Inside, Mayor Thompson sat behind his desk, flanked by the council members and Sheriff Davis. He rose when they entered, an unexpected gesture of respect. Miss Blackwood, Mr. and Mrs. Swift River, children, please be seated. He indicated the chairs arranged before his desk. Once they were settled, the mayor cleared his throat. I've asked you here to discuss recent events and reconsider certain decisions. Sarah tensed, preparing for another confrontation. Thomas's expression remained carefully neutral, though she noticed his hand protectively covering Hannah's. Yesterday's incident has caused considerable reflection among the council, Thompson continued. Miss Blackwood's actions were, he hesitated, extraordinarily brave. She saved our daughter when no one else would have tried, Thomas stated flatly. The mayor nodded uncomfortably. Yes, well, that's precisely what we've been discussing. It has come to our attention that perhaps our concerns regarding your family may have been somewhat hasty. Sarah could hardly believe what she was hearing. She glanced at the council members, noting their chastened expressions. Are you saying you've changed your minds about asking us to leave? Hannah asked directly. The mayor shifted in his seat. The council has voted to rescind that request, yes. Provided, of course, that Mr. Swift River continues his employment and you all abide by town laws. Thomas leaned forward. Why the change of heart, Mayor? A child's life was endangered, yes, but your concerns about my heritage haven't changed. A newcomer stepped forward from the corner of the room. Sarah recognized him as Colonel Brandon, a retired Army officer who owned the largest ranch in the county. He was respected, even revered, for his fair dealings and military service. If I may, Mayor, Brandon said, his authoritative voice filling the room. I requested to join this meeting for a specific purpose. The mayor nodded permission. Mr. Swift River, Brandon addressed Thomas directly. I understand you're experienced with horses and have knowledge of the surrounding territories. Thomas nodded cautiously. I am. My foreman speaks highly of your work at the livery. I've been looking for someone with your skills to help manage my horse breeding program and assist with boundary patrols. Brandon's gaze was direct, assessing. The position includes housing on the ranch property for you and your family. A stunned silence followed his offer. Such a position was respected, well paid, and would place Thomas in authority over several ranch hands, something unheard of for a man of mixed heritage in these parts. Why would you offer this to me? Thomas asked, understandably suspicious. Brandon straightened, his military bearing evident. Because I judge men by their character and abilities, not their bloodlines. My time in the army taught me that courage and loyalty know no color. He glanced at Sarah. And because Miss Blackwood's actions yesterday reminded everyone in this room what true character looks like. Hannah squeezed her husband's hand, hope blooming in her expression. The children would have space to run and play, she whispered. And attend school, Brandon added. My daughter runs a small school for the children of ranch workers. Your twins would be welcome there. Sarah felt a complicated mixture of emotions. Joy for the family's good fortune, but also a surprising pang of loss at the thought of them leaving. Thomas studied Brandon carefully before responding. I would need to see these arrangements for myself before deciding. Of course, Brandon agreed. Visit the ranch tomorrow, see the housing and meet my daughter, then decide. Mayor Thompson cleared his throat. Well, this seems a favorable resolution for all concerned. He turned to Sarah. Miss Blackwood, the town council also wishes to express its gratitude for your bravery. We've decided to provide funds to repair the roof of your store, which I believe has been leaking for some time. Sarah raised an eyebrow at this transparent attempt to regain her goodwill. That's very generous, Mayor. Outside the town hall, the family and Sarah paused to absorb what had just transpired. A position of respect, Hannah marveled, with proper housing and schooling for the children. Thomas remained cautious. We'll see what tomorrow brings before celebrating. It's more than we dared hope for when we arrived, Hannah reminded him. Sarah smiled at them, genuine happiness overcoming her selfish desire to keep them close. Colonel Brandon is a man of his word. If he's made this offer, it's sincere. Lily tugged at Sarah's skirt. Will you still be our friend if we move to the ranch? Sarah knelt to the child's level. Of course I will. The ranch is only 5 miles away. I'll visit often. Promise? James asked seriously. I promise, Sarah assured them both. The following day, Thomas and Hannah returned from their visit to the Brandon Ranch with transformed expressions. The colonel had shown them a comfortable 3-room cabin near a stream, introduced them to his daughter Elizabeth, a kind young woman who had studied teaching in Boston, and outlined duties that respected Thomas's skills and knowledge. It's everything he promised, Hannah told Sarah as they prepared for the family's departure the next morning. Elizabeth even has books on Comanche history that she wants the children to share with other students. That's wonderful, Sarah replied, folding linens to pack in their wagon. Colonel Brandon has always been progressive in his thinking. Thomas entered, carrying the last of their few belongings. The wagon is nearly ready. He set down his burden and faced Sarah directly. We owe you more than we can ever repay. Sarah shook her head. You owe me nothing. Your friendship has been payment enough. You changed the minds of this town, Hannah insisted. Without you, we'd still be wandering, searching for a place to belong. Perhaps, Sarah acknowledged. Or perhaps you simply needed one person to stand beside you until others could see what I saw immediately. A good family worthy of respect and opportunity. The twins burst in, their energy boundless with excitement about their new home. Miss Sarah, Colonel Brandon has horses just our size, James exclaimed. And a stream with fish, Lily added. And Elizabeth says she'll teach me to read better. Sarah laughed, her heart full despite the impending separation. That sounds wonderful. You must write and tell me all about it. As they loaded the final items into the wagon, a small crowd gathered on the street. To Sarah's surprise, many townspeople had come to bid the family farewell, bringing small gifts and good wishes. Mrs. Peterson offered a basket of baked goods for their journey. Mr. Cooper presented Thomas with a fine leather belt he had crafted himself. Even Billy Thompson shuffled forward, awkwardly offering the twins wooden toys as a peace offering. Colonel Brandon arrived on horseback to escort them to the ranch. Ready to start your new position, Swift River? He called. Thomas nodded, but turned first to Sarah. Without warning, he embraced her in a brief but powerful hug, a gesture that crossed cultural boundaries and spoke volumes about his trust and gratitude. Our people have a saying, he told her quietly. The bravest heart sees with clear eyes when others are blinded by fear. You have such a heart, Sarah Blackwood. Hannah embraced her next, tears flowing freely. We'll see you soon. Very soon, Sarah promised. The twins clung to her legs, extracting multiple promises of visits, stories, and picnics. Though never again near the cliffs, they all agreed with nervous laughter. As the wagon pulled away, Sarah felt an unexpected sense of fulfillment. In helping this family find acceptance, she had also found something herself, a purpose beyond merely surviving as a widow in a